The Comeback, Finding Voice podcast with Mo and Joe.
Oh, it's going. Hey, everyone. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
So today we'll be talking about...
We're talking about social anxiety. I didn't know that was my cue.
Yeah, that was your cue.
Oh my God.
You guys like my hair?
Do her corn cut.
Yep. I'm rocking this for the next podcast too. If it gets 2 likes. 2 likes. All right. Anyway. All right. So
it's a really low bar.
I know. That's how little reassurance I need from this hair.
She's very confident in this cut. So please, fulfill her destiny of having this cut.
Yep. So,
all right.
I guess the first thing we should probably do is kind of define what social anxiety is. And so Joe kind of looked up social anxiety disorder, I think just on Google. I think this is just a Google definition, right? So should I read it? Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so social anxiety disorder is a chronic mental health condition in which social interactions cause irrational anxiety. So full disclosure, I have been diagnosed with social anxiety disorder by a psychiatrist. So it's not like we're just saying shit out of our ass.
And actually go ahead.
No, go.
Something really interesting, because as you know, if you've been following us, which you should if you haven't,
subscribe
below. Mo is actually studying in her PhD for social psychology. I was going to say social anxiety. And so I was asking her last week when we were doing our podcast planning session to speak about more of our topics from a clinical perspective. And she actually brought up something really interesting to me. Quick background about me. I studied psychology at UCLA for my bachelor's, and I went on to my master's, which was for marriage and family therapy and counseling. So that's my angle that I'm coming from, but I am not a psychologist or a therapist right now. And Mo actually said something really interesting to me, that her program isn't really focused on the clinical side, that speaking about social anxiety was more of a clinical psych area.
Yep.
Is that what you said? Can you remind me what you said?
Yeah. So any mental health disorders that are diagnosable by DSM-5, using DSM-5, is usually covered by clinical psychology, and then social psychology usually focuses on more normative samples. Not to say that people with mental health aren't normative, because obviously a lot of people have struggles, especially with anxiety.
Can you explain again what normative means?
So I mean the way that it's used, at least in academia, is people who don't have any mental health disorders. So we're not really looking at we'll look at stress or maybe some depressive and anxiety symptoms, but we wouldn't look at schizophrenia or things like that, borderline personality. That's more the clinical angle. And social anxiety is kind of in the middle, where a lot of people do experience it. So there is some overlap, but mostly it's clinical.
Okay. And what about anxiety? You guys, anxiety? Is that a clinical thing or a social psych?
I think when it's published in social psychology journals, it's usually anxiety symptoms. And then when it's clinical, they'll talk about the disorder itself, generalized anxiety disorder or social anxiety disorder or things like that. Mm-hmm.
So things like shame, forgiveness, those things are more of a social psych.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, folks. So now we've got that clear. At least I've got it clear. Anything that's disorder, like a disorder in the DSM, which is a diagnostic of I'm so sorry. I've been away from school. Diagnostic manual?
Yeah, statistical manual. Yep.
Okay. And there's
Perfect.
a DSM-4. Is there a DSM-5 now? I'm clueless about
DSM-5.
this.
Yeah, DSM-5 is the most recent one. Yeah.
Okay, so guys, when I was in school, there was only the DSM-4. So I've been out of school for a very long time now. So that's why I'm stumbling. And she is our resident expert on all things academia.
Not all things, but yeah.
Okay, most things academia. She's our smarts. So that's cool. Thank you for explaining that to me again, because I forgot last week after our discussion last week.
Nice.
And to go on with the definition, the Google thing says, for people with social anxiety, everyday social interactions cause irrational anxiety, fear, self-consciousness, and embarrassment. Symptoms may include excess fear of situations in which one may be judged, worry about embarrassment or humiliation, or concern about offending someone. And it talks about how talk therapy and antidepressants can help increase confidence and improve ability to interact with others. And I really appreciate Mo being so willing to share so transparently, about her personal experience with being diagnosed by a psychologist with social anxiety disorder.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
And I think we both have had kind of these experiences in childhood where we were labeled like the quiet ones or the shy ones. And I think through this discussion, we kind of want to talk about how that's different from social anxiety and how it's also different from just being introverted. So, Sis, do you want to start us off with your experiences in childhood?
With social anxiety? Sure. So I may repeat some stuff from a past episode, so forgive me. So since I was very young, so as young as pre-K, I was already pinned by my teachers as someone who just didn't speak in class. And they thought there was something wrong with me. By first grade, I was already sent to a psychiatrist to be diagnosed. Mm-hmm. Because they thought there's something wrong with her. She doesn't scream around, play around obnoxiously like other kids. If only there could be a world full of kids like me. Just kidding. Yeah. But
like that,
right? Dream parenthood. I get that, expression is part of childhood, so we're not being haters here.
Yeah.
Disclaimer. But my childhood was just overcome with this label of being the girl who wouldn't speak, the girl who was quiet. I felt I was a dork. I wore the biggest glasses you've ever seen on the planet, this big. And my mom thought oh, it will help you see better. And I had really buck teeth, were all mangled. And I never stood up for myself. I would get so anxious doing simple things such as going to McDonald's and ordering a Happy Meal. I would be so scared and I would wobble and shake, standing in line. I would be really sweaty when we had to share something in class, or if I wanted to say something, I would be probably working myself up for 20 minutes before I dared to raise my hand. And most of the time, this conversation would just move on. I was bullied a lot, so I think that factored into increasing my social anxiety, because I didn't have the knowledge of saying stop, or I don't like that, or why are you so mean to me? I didn't know how to do those things, or that it was even an option to say those things. Mm-hmm. And I had an incident in 4th grade, which I've definitely mentioned before. where I was chosen for the fourth grade spelling bee and I didn't say anything. And so I felt like this further, like, put this like anxiety of like, how can I ever break out of this mold of what people expect of me, the girl who just never speaks. It felt even harder to break out of it because it's what people expected of me. And there would be classmates who would say, like, if I would be like, excuse me, and I would have to say it louder because they wouldn't hear me, they would be like, oh, she's getting louder, you know? And so it would just be like a lot of like pressure. And so that was my experience in the family, in my family, and outside of family, where I was just a quiet girl who just would let anything happen to her. So that's my experience of childhood and my background in it. My psychiatrist did end up saying that he preemptively diagnosed me after 3 sessions. I forgot what it was. It was something it was a personality disorder. And I don't remember which one it was. But I actually reached out to him. I know.
Did you?
I did reach out to him when I was in my master's.
That's really cool.
And he actually pulled up my notes that he still had.
What?
Crazy, right? Usually they throw away notes after 10 years.
Right.
Like 25 years later. I don't remember. But he actually said, like, yeah, you didn't keep up with it. You didn't keep coming in. But he had, like, jotted down some notes of, like, potential personality disorders, which I'm glad we didn't follow through with it, because I think that would just be yet another label, because personality disorders are no joke, guys.
No, they're not. They're not at all.
And so in my adulthood, we didn't talk about going into adulthood, but why don't you, can you share?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a very similar experience, where I was, like, really, really quiet as a child. But the funny thing is, like, I was able to be very loud and, like, rambunctious at home. But then when it came to school is when I became really, really, really quiet. And so it's kind of different from, like, Jo, because, like, she was more consistent across different, like, environments. But for me, it was like, if there are other kids, then I can't be, like, loud and, like, be myself kind of thing. And I think it was because of this, like, being bullied a lot. And, like, there were, like, times, like, and it was different people too, usually. So it was, like, girls and boys. So I used to have this, like, I still am friends with him, but he was, like, a childhood friend. Like, our moms were really close with each other. So we, like, grew up together kind of, and he just had, like, a troubled childhood. But he would pick on me a lot, like, because we'd have to, like, go to these gatherings with, like, a bunch of people, and he would always be there, and then there would be other kids there, but then he'd, like, make the other kids, like, go against me. So a lot of, like, group kind of dynamics where one person, like, is, like, turns a whole group against me. Those kind of experiences have happened a lot. So, I think that's where, like, my reaction of just, like, shutting down and, like, not saying anything came into play, because that was the most effective. When I didn't react, when I didn't give them any reaction, they left me alone. So that's the way I thought, like, I could handle it, and that's the way that I thought it would keep me safe, you know?
Absolutely.
So,
One thing that I do want to mention is Mo is an only child. She was very, very, very close to her mom growing up. And I was the middle of 3, but grew up in one house it was a multi-generational household. So I grew up with 7 of my other cousins for some time, along with my other uncles and aunts and grandparents. It's very common in Taiwan, I guess, to do something like that. But it was also in America. We grew up in Guam. So it's just very interesting how it kind of, it plays out, even though we have such different family structure. And
Yeah.
I think I was most comfortable with my little brother, my baby brother. But still, like, there were times, like, very similar where, like, older cousins, like, I'm so close with them now, and I love them. They're, like, brothers and sisters to me. But sometimes they would, like, be mad at me and, like, gang up on me. And that was always, like, kind of tough, you know? And I wouldn't say anything about that. So.
Yeah. So, yeah, and just to give you, like, guys, some background on, like, how we were before, just because we're presenting now as, like, not so timid and shit, like, doesn't mean that we didn't go through, like, this kind of phase in our life where we were labeled, like, something that we aren't now. So, sis, do you want to talk about how things have changed in adulthood?
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm just not sure what I've said already before. I think like 2 sessions ago. I don't remember. So stop me or redirect me if I just keep going in the same, same way. But in adulthood, I think, so going into my master's, I still somewhat had that reputation, but because I was very lucky, I was in a program that was postmodern. So very humanistic, very like, there's nothing wrong with you. You are not your problem. Your problem's a problem. You're separate from your problem. It was very loving. And it was this like, it was a 3-year program. So that gave me enough time to really like come out of my shell the last year. But even then, I was still like, I remember people being really like surprised and impressed whenever I would speak up, or if I would do a demonstration for therapy, and I would be really bold, like the occasional bold snap. People would be like, whoa, and like clap. Whereas for someone who was like really outspoken all the time, they probably would just still clap, but not be like, whoa, where'd that come from, Joe? Right. So it's really like a becoming, like, I really didn't really become more of feeling like me until I was a business owner after I graduated. And then I started playing around with like sassy names for my business. So in the very beginning, when I first graduated, I was like, all right, it's going to be Mind and Body Wellness by Joe Huang. And that was the name of my business. And then like I started to really play and have fun with it. I was like, you know what? Call it, like, I was talking to a friend and I was like, he was asking me why I wanted to work with like people in relationships. And part of that was like, I felt like I had to do that because I studied relationships in my master's, right? But another part of it was like, I was like, you know what? I just wanted to stop dicking around. Like, I just wanted to stop dicking around, and I want them to like either stay in their relationship or leave it if it's not good for them. And I was like, it was such a moment of passion that he was like, whoa. And we were like, you know what? That's the name of my business. Stop dicking around now coaching.
Yeah.
And so for years, like I would have that. And I still sometimes like when I'm like in a serious setting, like for my taxes or like my business tax license, they're like, what's the name of the business? I'm like, stop dicking around now. Coaching. Digging? No, dicking. Dick. D-I, spell that for me. D-I-C-K-I-N-G. Dicking. Dick. Like, it's always really fun. On my credit card, I have a business credit card, so I'll say stop dicking around now, and some people who notice are like, whoa, look at this. And it's like really just seeing how it would bring people joy. It really lit like a fire in my soul to be more expressed and be more me. And with that, like, does come with tests from the universe, because I did have people come to me and be like, you got great stuff, but honestly, kids these days just cuss too much. So if you just take out the cussing, then I'll be a customer of yours, and I'll be like, read between the lines. Oh my, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
So it's like, like how I'm lighting up with you now, like it felt so good. And I wanted more of that, you know? And then like I had a tragedy happen in my business about 2 years ago. Something I'm still working through right now. But it really like took my life in a different direction. And I was like, okay, we're gonna call it Fuck the Filter, like a new branch of the business. So I'm working with that. But for me, it was like not until my late 20s did I start to embrace the sassy side of me and let her come out to play and see how the world would respond to her, not with, oh, whoa, but like, wow, I want more, you know?
Yeah.
And so it took me moving through, like, I thought college would be my new start. Then I thought my master's would be my new start. Then I thought moving to a new city would be my new start. And I kept wanting new starts. But the biggest thing I learned from it is that we kind of just have to jump and go for it and pay attention to the people who do support you, because there will always be people who are like, whoa, and shove you back into that box. So that's my adulthood. I want to hear how sis Mo, how it manifested for her, because I'm seeing a lot of growth and change in her journey. I want to hear about it.
Yeah. Before I do that, I do want to acknowledge like how much courage and like strength it does take to come out of that label, or like the label of like being quiet and like deemed the, you know, the timid Asian girl who, you know, will go along with whatever. I think it takes a lot of courage, and I'm so proud that like you came out of the box and you're like, fuck y'all, I'm gonna run this town, you know?
Bitch.
Yeah, bitch.
And like it really does help. Guys, I have to say something. It really, really does help to have the crew next to you. For me, the crew for many years was just Mo. And she's still like my number one bestie. We actually have one thing I didn't mention, and then I'm gonna hand it over to you. I'm just like so excited, like talking about our journey, because we've known each other since we were 3, guys.
Yeah.
That's like a long freaking time. It's almost 30 years. My mom saw how much trouble I was having in school, and so she was like, that's when she started allowing me to fraternize with the world. And so she would have like Mo, come over, and then one of my like my other first best friends, Virginia, we call her Jin or Ginny Poo. She was from London, which probably explains my obsession with it, because I always heard about London from her. And she would invite them over, and they were a lot more like, at least to me, both Mo and Jin were a lot more bold and audacious and outspoken, and that really like was a great modeling for me. Even if I didn't, it kind of like was something that I like took and like cultivated for like 20 years before I took and made it my own. But being around that energy, like Mo was always like really good with like standing up against like bullies for me. Like Jin actually said it once. She said like, I think it's really good to have that you have Mo in your life, because you know, like you would say something like, fuck off. You wouldn't say fuck off, because we would be expelled or gone to the principal's office. But, you know, you'd be like, stop that, you stupid. And then she said that I said, like, yeah, stop that, you stupid, which I don't remember doing.
Yeah.
But I could see, you know, like just having a solid group of friends that just don't give a fuck what the bullies say and just doesn't let it affect them really was so paramount to me. So I'm really grateful I was very blessed. I have Mo, and I still have her now.
Oh, yeah. I think that's an important point. Like, we all need, like, people who are at the sidelines cheering us on and, like, protecting us from shitty people. But I guess the other thing I wanted to ask, okay, I'll share my piece, and then I wanted to, like, further follow up and talk about how social anxiety has manifested itself, like, now, too. 'Cause, like, I can say that, yeah, I have grown, like, in the sense that, yeah, I can, like, I'll speak up, or I can talk to strangers and things like that I wasn't able to do, like, when I was younger, I was like terrified to do. Like just like you with the McDonald's, I could not order my own food. Like I just thought that everything that I did would be a failure. Like, or people would like think that, oh, this girl's stupid, or like what's wrong with her, things like that. And those thoughts still do go through my head, like when I'm in lab meetings and stuff for school. Like those thoughts are very familiar, and they still pop up. And like that's just like goes to show that, like, you know, like even though we grow out of like the uncomfortable like what is it, like cocoons that we were in when we were a child, and like blossom into like a butterfly, it still like has still some influence in like how we are today, you know? And so I guess the thing that helps now that I didn't have before, one is definitely a good group of friends. And I am very, 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 very grateful for Jo. She's my ride or die. But like a good support system, as well as like just, I don't know, like this sounds kind of corny, but like self-care stuff, like taking care of yourself and like knowing that you deserve it kind of like helps that too. Like, I don't know. It's like not directly influencing it, but I think it like really helps to boost like me acknowledging my worth. Like I'm like saying, hey, you know what? You're worth like doing all this stuff for. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense, but
what kind of self-care? No, it like, totally does make sense. What kind of self-care do you do?
Okay. So I don't know how long it's been. It's probably like more than a couple months now. Like I like purchased skincare stuff. So I always do a skincare routine at nighttime, and my mom has been bugging me since I was like probably 20 to like have a skincare routine at nighttime, because past a certain point she's like, you're already aging. But I never listened. And then I would definitely attempt to do stuff. And that's why like Jo knows like about like eye cream and stuff. She's like, okay, yeah. But like I never kept up with it. But until recently, like I've been pretty regimented with like my night skincare routine at night. So that's one thing.
I'm just laughing because you did first tell me about the night cream, and I'm like, why? Can't I just use lotion? It's 2 steps. I'm very like much about, let's keep it simple. Let's just be smart about this, okay? Why do I need a little pot that I like smear under my eyes? No. You do not smear.
No. With your pinky.
Oh, with this kusui finger.
No, pinky.
Why your pinky?
Because it's more delicate.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm the type that's like, I'm just doing self-care anyway, so I'm just going to smear it and rub it in. Yeah. But I'm laughing also because Mo gave me my first mask. And then like 3 years later, like she gave me this whole box of masks, and then like maybe 7 years later, it's really like long time. You're like, is this the same box of masks that I gave you? And I'm like, yes. She's like, it's expired.
I know.
Like, it's fine. It's just my face. I'm not eating it. She's like, your skin is eating it. And then I was like, no, don't throw it away. I'll use it one day. And then she like totally chucked it, and she's like, I'll just get you more. I'm like, please don't get me more. Which like is funny that you talk about that, because my friends Mickey and Kelly would definitely agree with you, sis, on the skincare, self-care, value, worth thing. Yeah. I'm working on it. I have been good for the last few days, which
I'm glad. Oh, wow. Yeah.
I used to not wash my face, guys.
But I mean, like, your face is in really good condition, factoring in, like, you don't do anything for your face.
Right?
Yeah.
But yes, so back to what you were saying about your worth, feeling worthy enough. And like, that's something I kind of like had like a conversation with my friend about, was like, just because I don't wash my face and don't wash I do wash my hair, but I was like, doesn't mean I don't value myself. So it really is up to you to create like what makes you feel good, what makes you feel worthy, what makes you feel beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, for me, it was buying. I don't want to stand up, but I bought myself a new wrap. It's called a pareo for my Tahitian dancing, and I feel so beautiful in it. And I bought a
Oh,
premium fabric, and I feel like, oh my God, I love how I look in it. So I've been prancing around in it all day, even
yeah.
though I don't need it until like tonight.
I love that. I love that for you. Okay. So, I mean, like, I guess, oh yeah, the question that I had for you really quickly was, how does it manifest now? The anxiety. So it's not the
Oh,
same as childhood, right?
yeah, it's not the same. Yeah, thank you for asking that because I totally didn't. It manifests differently. Like I'm okay with like walking up to people if I need to. I'm okay with like being assertive and making things right now. Like I have no problems with that. But how it really, really, really shows up is when I need to be visible and when I need to like just show the world like what I'm about. Like I'm reaching a phase in my business where I need to do online marketing if I want to hit my goals and create the lifestyle I want.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is finally building an online presence, marketing to strangers, having more than 3 clients at once, 3 customers
Mm-hmm.
at once. And all of that brings up so much shit at a level of like unconsciousness that I don't even can't even begin to describe you. And most seen it like where I'll be like, I'll do this thing where I start procrastinating in different ways. So it's either I look at puppies. My 2 pups passed away the last few months. So in the middle of the workday, I'll be like, puppies, even if I'm not sure if I'm ready for a puppy. Branding is a very real thing. I'm making my first downloadable and I changed it from last year. And then I tell Mo, like, okay, here's a new one after I spend like 2 weeks on it. And then I make it and then I'm like, oh, I don't know, it doesn't feel so good anymore. I feel stupid and uncool and lame. So feeling uncool and lame and corny are really big themes that pop up
Yeah.
um where I'm like staring at my like marketing funnel and I'm like, oh my God, this is so uncool. No one's gonna want this. I don't even want this. Why would anyone want this? I can't put money towards this.
See how it
Um
quickly it spirals into into the abyss.
yeah,
Yep.
it spirals into the abyss. And just like shit coming up that derails me on my greater path, which is
Mm-hmm.
always gonna put me and my business in a center stage spotlight. Um, is there any other way you've seen it manifest in my life?
Mm, I was gonna like touch on like um maybe not social anxiety, but it's like I think you're more introverted.
Mm.
Your introverted like aspect of yourself. It kind of seeps through.
Oh yes,
Um yeah. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
yes. Oh my God, and Scott could have a lot to say about this. I've become a lot more comfortable with my introverted side, almost to the point where I use it as an excuse to not like get out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels cool to be introverted now, though. If I
Yeah.
have to admit, like I'm an introvert, not for
Yeah.
me. Like when I visited
Yeah.
Mo before this whole shelter in place pandemic stuff happened, um, she was like, I'm gonna have a dinner with my friends if you want to come. I'm like, no, I don't think that's for me. But then like a part of me was like, okay, I never get to meet her friends. And she has some
Yeah.
pretty freaking cool ones now.
Thanks.
I never get to hang out with her friends. Um, so then I had to like bust myself out of that. But introvertedness, like in, you know, my relationships where I'm like, or like networking. I hate networking now because I did it. I did all those networking events.
Mm-hmm.
But I very much like my space.
Yeah.
And when it comes to connecting with friends, sometimes I'm like, I'd rather not. I'd rather be unshowered and not have people see me. Except if it's Mo, like I could totally be in my underwear in front of Mo or on the toilet. You know, like,
Yeah.
like there's that comfort there, but there's this like, I really think twice about interacting with other people face to face. Like really think about it. I'm very selective about my time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's different from like being anxious or like socially anxious. Just because I think it's not that it's not okay to be socially anxious too. That's completely fine. But it's like the way that introversion is more the way that we re-energize ourselves. And like social anxiety is just more about like being scared of being judged about something. So I kind of want to like make that distinction, just because a lot of people think that it's the same.
Right. Yeah, there's different distinctions between social anxiety, shyness, introversion, and I put anxiety on my notes.
Oh, general, like general anxiety.
Yeah. Which I think I personally have all of those.
I think I do too. Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
I feel like when we were younger, we were more shy. Shy is more like a personality. Like, are you shy? Like,
yeah.
But it's very closely intertwined with social anxiety and having the intention on you.
Yeah. I think the behaviors look very similar on the outside.
Yeah.
That's why. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But social anxiety could be very specific to certain situations or a certain outcome, like a fear of upsetting someone, a fear of offending someone, or a fear of you looking stupid. Whereas you could be shy, but not socially anxious. It doesn't necessarily come together. Introversion is exactly what Mo said. It's how you recharge. I can turn it on. I can be my sassy, funny self. I can be charming. Sometimes I can be really awkward. But then when I recharge, I'm like, okay, peace and quiet. But that can often, which I think Mo was talking about manifesting, I can overdo the recharging alone and then feel sick of being alone by myself, and spiral out in different ways. And then anxiety, like I used to have anxiety about like driving, you know, or like living alone and being afraid that something bad's going to happen to me. It had nothing to do with other people, but that was generalized anxiety. So turning the mic over to Mo about how it's manifested in her adulthood life, especially post, pre and post diagnosis. She only got diagnosed recently in grad school.
It was just So it was just more recently. So I guess like I didn't feel like I had it before. But I definitely did do the same things. I experienced the same feelings, just not as intensely. So like when I came here to grad school, it was just exacerbated. Whatever I felt in like group situations just made it worse, just because like the people around me were so like high level, like I felt like, I don't deserve to be here. It's like the imposter syndrome stuff we've talked about, in our previous podcast. That's kind of how I felt. And that just made my anxiety worse, to the point where like I felt like I was going to pass out just by being in a room with other grad students and like other like grad faculty, not even saying anything, just thinking about saying something made me that like anxious. So like, full disclosure, I do take meds, and I'm not like encouraging it or whatever. Like you do you, go to a professional, like look at your options, like, but for me, it did help a lot. At least like the physical symptoms, it really helped me with, just cause like when I start to feel anxious, I've had experiences where it would escalate to the point that I actually did pass out, and I don't want to have to do that, but those feelings trigger that within me. So it really helped with that. And so like the social anxiety now has been like a lot better, like not just because of the meds, but I think because I finally feel like I belong to like some kind of group. You know what I mean? Like I have like more of a core group of friends here that I didn't have before. And it makes me feel like I belong somewhere, you know?
Absolutely.
And so that's really helped too. And I have a great advisor. Joe like always hears me like talk about my advisor.
I love him. Even though I haven't met him yet.
I know. I really want you to though.
He's so sweet.
Yeah. Like I just had my year 2 talk, which is like kind of one of our milestones or like one of our assessments, I guess, in our second year of the PhD program. It's kind of a big deal. At least like it's one of the things that we need to do. It's required for all PhD social psych students. And so I had that, and it's basically like presentation on like your work for the, like whatever you've done for the first 2 years in the program. And so like, all the students are there, all the grad students are there, all the grad faculty are there, just like basically watching you present for a full hour. Well, it's like, technically it's like 40 minutes of presenting and then like Q&A. Q&A is like the worst thing though. Like for me, I feel like Q&A is the worst. It's like the perfect opportunity to look dumb, you know? But I think like
you can't control it. You can't control what people will say.
Yeah, you can't. You just can't. So I don't know. And it was like fine. Like it was just really good. So I think it still comes up when I'm in crowds or like with like new people. I definitely
Have
feel
you noticed
like
a difference in like class? Because I know that was one of the biggest things that Mo really wanted to entertain this getting on medication thing. Because I was like always like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. They over medicate in our society. And we're not opening the discussion to this. So again, like Mo said, it's you do you, consult a doctor. If you want to just chat with us about it, then cool. But again, we're not licensed therapists. We're not here for that. We're just sharing our experiences. But one thing I want to circle back on is, because I haven't checked in with you in a while, is your participation in class and how that's shifted as a result of everything that's happened.
I think it's like made it easier for me. Like I'm not saying like I'm the most talkative one now or whatever, but I definitely see myself like asserting myself in those kind of situations more. So like I'll raise my hand more. I'll elaborate on my answers. I used to like just say one sentence because I wanted to rush through, like stop looking at me, like stop like judging me right now. So I just say like 2 words or something as a response. But now I like try to like elaborate more on whatever I'm thinking or whatever like I'm suggesting. So
and just so you guys know, like from my perspective, Mo hasn't changed at all. That was my biggest fear, was that this would shut off part of her personality. Because I've just heard that from past clients that I've worked with, that antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds can really like make you feel like a zombie. Yeah. Mo's actually still herself. I wouldn't be able to tell. And she always was very wordy with me and very articulate with me and very well expressed, and just I've always told her that. So I've never actually seen her in a place where she wasn't able to talk. I've never seen her in that environment. But just so you know that it doesn't always look to be a certain box. A person doesn't have to be stuttering all the time, or like a total person who can't explain what they're talking about at all. Social anxiety can come in different shapes, forms, and sizes and colors. And I think that's like our theme here, sis. Like every time we talk about something like imposter syndrome, it's like it doesn't always look this way. Here's how it looks for you and me. Here's what it might look like, you know? There's no hard and fast rules for these things.
Yeah, and I think that's like an excellent way to like wrap up this podcast. Like, please share with us how you've experienced social anxiety in your life. We'd love to hear more about your experiences. Like, it just feels better when like you know that there are other people like you or like that have experiences like you. So yeah, like please share down below, and don't forget to subscribe and like our video.
Yay! All right, bye guys.
See ya. Bye.